So welcome to the DFDL live event on the expert overview of the logistics and industrial real estate sector in Vietnam. I'll be your host, Paul Volodarsky. I'm the deputy head of the regional real estate practice at DFDL, and I'll be joined by my colleague, Thang Huynh, who is a partner and the head of our Hanoi office. Just to give you some background of DFDL, we are an international law firm with a focus on Southeast Asia and South Asia. We have offices throughout the region. Our offices are located in ASEAN region as well as in Bangladesh. So without any further ado, I would like to start this process of going through the questions that we've talked about online, and hopefully you'll enjoy this discussion, and feel free to send your questions in during our discussion. We'll be going through your questions in order or as we see during this discussion. So moving to our first question. So Thang, actually, before we get there, why don't I allow you to introduce yourself as well?
Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Thang. I'm partner of DFDL based in Hanoi, working with Paul on various real estate projects. Happy to share our knowledge with you on this subject in this webinar. Thank you.
Okay, so why don't we get right to it? So Thang, I know that you and I have worked on a number of different types of transactions. So why don't we start out with what are some of the legal and due diligence considerations that investors should take into account when they're entering into the logistics and industrial real estate market in Vietnam?
Thanks, Paul. That's a long and difficult questions. But I would start by saying that it actually depends from who you are and in which areas of logistics and industrial real estate market that you will be participating in. So it may vary from if you are the developers, those industrial real estate market, or if you are just those who want to rent real estate, industrial real estate for your operations. Then basically we have two types of participant in this market. So I would say first about the developer. And I'm sure among the participants, you know very well how difficult it is to get land in Vietnam for development of industrial zone. But if you have a broader look at how it is happening here in Vietnam in this field, then you're gonna get more exciting about this. If you see that for the last especially 2-3 years, there have been like an increasing interest in the industrial properties in Vietnam. That has resulted in increased numbers of industrial zones which have either been built up or under constructions in Vietnam. And why we have such increased numbers is because you have seen for sure that a shift from a shift of the manufacturing establishment from certain neighboring country to Vietnam, notably from China to Vietnam. And apart from that, another reason might also be about Vietnam signing up, some treaties recently, like CCTTP and the EFTAs with Europe. That has also increased the interest in the industrial real estate in Vietnam, because under those treaties there have been like a lot of incentives, a lot of tariff cut off or cut down that drives the manufacturers from Europe into having establishment manufacturing establishment in Vietnam. So that's why you have seen increasing numbers of industrial zone in Vietnam. For the legal development in Vietnam on that front, it has also been recent changes in the laws of Vietnam, especially the law on investment, the latest one, which has now lifted a lot of restrictions, for foreign investment in the real estate, industrial real estate in business in Vietnam. I can give an example that in the past, for a real estate company, you need to have a minimum legal capital. It's not so high, but it's still a requirement for nearly a million US dollar. Then now that requirement has been removed. That has not only mean that financially the investor need not to to provide that financing at the start, but it's also mean that there has been like a simplicity in the procedure for a real estate developer entering Vietnam market. So I think that's exciting. But the other thing is about how to get land in Vietnam for those projects. The procedures are still complicated. It's not easy, as a matter of fact, finding a proper a land plot, especially a big one for industrial zone. Normally it takes some time, to complete the whole process. So I still see the hurdle there. Not yet saying about the the lack of proper infrastructures in place in Vietnam. So these things you need to take into considerations as a developer who want to participate in Vietnam real estate market. The second type is about the tenants, those manufacturers who come here and have their manufacturing establishment, established in Vietnam. Then most of them, I would say that they would they would go for a land plot somewhere in an industrial zone, which has been like readily usable. That would be like the most efficient and less complicated approach for the manufacturers, for the investor. For this approach, then a few things that the investor would need to bear in mind is about checking if the developers that they're going to lease land from has the lawful right to lease land to the investor for the business. A few tips to check is, first, the most important thing is if the developer has a proper decision for developing that industrial land or not, if they have the land use right certificate, which is normally referred as a red book in Vietnam. In our career, in our practice, we have seen that it's not always simple as that. Some developers, they seem to have an industrial zone, but it turned out to be not a valid or legal industrial zone. Or you may lease a land which is claimed to be in an industrial zone, but it turned out to be outside of an industrial zone. So those kind of things that require a thorough due diligence. And this is very important. I know that some certain investor may take it lightly for due diligence, but in our experience, a good due diligence will decide if you decide the success of your project in Vietnam. Thank you.
Okay, I think that really goes over a lot of different issues relating to the legal side and getting your documents in order and making sure that when you're looking at sites that you're obtaining the right information and that you know what's going on. And moving on to the next question, what are some of the practical issues that we encounter as part of this due diligence process that our clients come to us about?
If you are asking about practicals, matter, then it can be a lot, But I think I mentioned somehow a few matters which relate to, the location of the land plot, relate to the land use right certificate. I think other things then you will be able to verify if you have a good due diligence, such as about whether if you lease a land in an industrial zone, how are you going to pay for it? If you're going to pay for it annually or a lump sum, that will depends on the way or the regions on which the land was allocated to the developer himself. For example, if the developers was granted the land on annual payment basis, then it may not collect rentals, host a lump sum rentals from the investor. And all these things would also decide in terms of the scope of right for the developer itself and also the investor once it's take over the land. For example, if the land is allocated on annual payment basis, then the investor may not be entitled to a full scope of right. Some right may be missing, such as the right to mortgage, the land use right, because you are only paying annual on an annual basis. And I think that can also be some other practical issues, not really about when you lease the land, from the developer. I'm sorry, I'm talking about the investor having land in the industrial zone. When you lease a land from the developer, you also need to verify if the land that land plot is subject to any encumbrance or not. And notably about if the developer has ever mortgage the land use right over the landlord that is leasing to you. This is a challenge in practice, given the limited data available publicly. In our experience, and we normally have to rely a lot on the developers for in terms of their cooperation for this process. Because the local authority, normally they are not that willing to disclose information about the security over the land plot that the developer want to lease. So all these, the final objective is to find out if the developers have the lawful right to lease the land at the time it lease land to the investor. A few other things, like if you if you are implementing a manufacturing project, you also need to take into consideration a few things, like whether that is the good location for your business. If they are close to port or highway, if there are, in terms of zoning, if there is any restrictions for your specific business, for manufacturing business, for the specific product that you are manufacturing. All these things require to be verified before you, and it's advisable that need to be verified before you enter into a land sublease contract with the developer.
Yeah, I think that we've seen a few of those issues come up during our due diligence phase, and some of the other issues, such as demining activities and who's responsible for it, along with infrastructure issues. But moving on to the next question, in a post-COVID world, I think a lot of countries have taken time to develop new laws or to clarify the law in order to encourage investment. What are some of the legal changes that we've seen over the last year or so?
I think the most exciting things is about the signing up of different treaties by Vietnam, as I mentioned earlier, about CCTPP, about EVR, European Vietnam, Free Trade Agreement, about also about the treaty about the investment protections between Vietnam and Europe. So all these are gonna set forth, has set forth some very good foundations for the further the legal development in the Vietnamese laws and regulations. You have seen the latest movement in this regard regarding the law on investment, the law on real estate business in Vietnam, and there as I'm aware, there have been like a very busy schedule for new law makings in Vietnam, and I know that this COVID is somehow impeding the speed, but we believe that we are pretty confident that Vietnam would maintain, this growth, even though the COVID situation is not so good for the time being. But we hope that that would be very like temporary, and things would be recovering or much better in the next, I would say, coming months. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Paul, you are on mute.
Sorry, everyone. You got to see me wave my hands around for a few seconds. But what I was asking Thang is about what are some of the directions that we think that the real estate, logistics and industrial sector market will go, and where do we see the market in the next year? I guess look into your crystal ball and give us some of your thoughts on that.
I just mentioned about CTTPP and EV FTA, and if you know that the expectation is that we will welcome or receive more like high values, manufacturing of high value products in Vietnam. I'm pretty confident that that will be the great, things for Vietnam. Once the manufacturers from Europe are relocating their or building up their new manufacturing establishment in Vietnam, it will be about manufacturing high-end or high-value products. That's the first good thing. The second thing, which I'm sure among participants you have seen that is the wave from the China, from neighboring country relocating their business to Vietnam, and things like big name like Alibaba, like other GNP. GNP is one of the biggest investment real estate investment in Vietnam. Then we have seen that those are like a very immediate demand for setting up establishments, businesses in Vietnam, and commence operation as soon as possible. So what I hope is that Vietnam would be able to accommodate this demand by allowing more industrial zone in Vietnam. We have seen like the concept about special economic zones that would make a lot of contribution to this process. And also it's about simplifying the procedures for developing new industrial zone in Vietnam. Then we will be able to timely receive all the I would say the concept is eagles from Europe and China. Mute again, Paul. You're mute
yes,
again.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm struggling with the mute button unclicking. So I think what we can do now is we have a few extra minutes, I believe, that we can answer some of the questions that I see coming in from the audience. I think one of the first ones that we have is, what is your view on the opportunity for investment in data centers in Vietnam?
Can you say again, Paul?
What is our view on the opportunity for investment in data centers in Vietnam?
In the data centers in Vietnam.
Yes.
You mean the Mekong Delta?
No, data centers. So
data center.
So the places in Vietnam that are currently being built to house servers and collection of data for companies. I think, if I may, I'll jump in on this for a little bit. I think it's a huge opportunity in Vietnam simply because there are already legal requirements in place for developers, for companies to store certain information in Vietnam relating to consumers in Vietnam. So when a Vietnamese consumer provides certain data, that's required to be stored on a local server in Vietnam. The other part of that is going to be, as a big issue in following COVID, is supply chain issues. So data centers are necessary as you start increasing logistics and you start seeing an increase in the number of companies that are providing e-commerce opportunities in Vietnam. Vietnam is quite a big market. It's about 100 million people and a growing middle class. So I think with the growth of the e-commerce sector, the growth of the middle class, there'll be a necessity in Vietnam to continue building new data centers, and we're already starting to see that coming in. Some of the logistics providers are building their own data centers just to help manage the flow of goods from their facilities.
Exactly what Paul just mentioned. I think in terms of the foundation, in terms of the logistics, we should be ready for those data centers in Vietnam. And you have seen like some big name like Intel, who has been here for many years. I think this concept has been growing in Vietnam. But at the same time, with the favorable conditions being there, I should also mention, highlight to you that Vietnam, the government of Vietnam is having a tighter controls over the process for collections of data, personal data. And for your information, the government of Vietnam has now prepared a draft decree on collections of personal data, which may require those who are collecting data to be subject to various requirements, mainly to protect the privacy for the data holders. Thank you.
And I think we have time for one more question. I think we're a little bit over, but we'll get to at least one more question from the audience. One of the other questions that I see here that's interesting is, with the increase in the value of industrial land in Vietnam, do you think that there's going to be an obstacle for Vietnam to lure more FDI based upon the increase in the cost of industrial land? It's a difficult question.
I think it's difficult questions. We know, and I think people know that there has been an increase in the costs in the rentals recently in different industrial zones in different provinces of Vietnam. I think it's a challenge, and I hope that compared to the costs in other neighboring countries, though it has been increased, we're still like competitive. I think the reason that the cost is increased is not only about the greater interest, but it's also about the cost for the developer to build up and operate an industrial zone. The cost, like different kind of costs, including administrative costs. As you see that it normally takes like 2-3 years for for a company to complete the process for development and industrial zone. So I hope that with the positive trends in the legal development in Vietnam, with the trends in the improvement in the in the process. And hopefully the whole process will be shortened. That would mean that we will save some costs for the investor. And also at the for the time being, given that the number of industrial zones are not sufficient to accommodate the demand, that also the reason for the high cost. But hopefully in the next say 1-2 years, when we have more industrial zone, the cost would be reduced or become more competitive, given the balance between supply and demand at the times.
Yeah, and I think just going off of that again, one of the big reasons why the industrial sector in Vietnam has boomed is because of diversification for manufacturers. So moving from China and other jurisdictions into Vietnam in order to reduce the reliance on one specific jurisdiction. And I think, while prices in Vietnam have been increasing quite quickly, you still have relatively low cost of labor, and you have an increasingly capable workforce in terms of developing more complex manufacturing. And you're starting to see that already in the north with the high-tech industrial zones already up and running, and new infrastructure projects almost on a weekly basis are announced by the government. So I think we'll see strong growth in the industrial sector, regardless of increasing prices in the industrial sector at this point. But I think we are out of time. I would like to thank the audience really for joining us this morning. This was a quick discussion. We're only touching on high-level issues, but please feel free to reach out to us if you have more detailed questions. We'll be happy to discuss with you outside of this discussion. And again, thank you to Thang for joining and answering these questions. They're sometimes difficult. And, in my experience, the Vietnam market is quite complex, and it's sometimes difficult to navigate, but it is navigable. So thank you very much. And Thang, I'll let you have the final word before we close this discussion.
Thank you, Paul. I think this is a rather interesting times for the development of industrial and logistic real estate in Vietnam. We have seen the trends, we have seen the movement, the direction that the industrial real estate is moving toward. And we have seen also the potential for greater FDI into Vietnam, given the Vietnamese has been a member member of different treaties, as I mentioned. So we hope and we are confident that would help Vietnam to promote the business in Vietnam, especially to foreign investor in this sector. And as a lawyers working in this, practicing in this line of business, among other lines, I'm very excited to see how it's gonna go, and to come along with the investor in their projects in Vietnam. So thank you for spending time to join this webinar. And we're happy because we know that the webinar is rather short, but we're happy to take up your other questions, on another occasions or by any other channel that facilitates this. So thank you, and have a good day. Bye bye.